Gin Does Games, powered by Mundo. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Gin here with another League of Legends champion guide for you. Today we're going to be discussing a fuzzy, furry dude who'd... well, he'd slit your throat if you said he looked cute. This is Warwick, the Blood Hunter. He's here to pounce on targets and drain them of their very essence. Sharpen your claws so you can take notes in the blood of your enemies. It's time to learn how to Warwick. Warwick is a self-sustaining hybrid champion, capable of taking any solo lane or the jungle. In fact, especially with his new price, Warwick is arguably the best jungler for a new player to start with. With all his sustain, though I'd never recommend it, he can actually clear the jungle with no runes or masteries at all. That massive sustain begins with his passive, Eternal Thirst. Each time he hits something with a basic attack, Warwick deals additional magic damage to the target and heals himself for the same amount. Each successive attack against the same target stacks this healing and damage up to 3 times. This passive scales up every time he levels, getting stronger and stronger. It's like free lifesteal at the start of the game. It's important to note that the healing and damage, while generally equal, are independent. So, if the damage is reduced for whatever reason, like via magic resistance, the healing will still be the same. Conversely, if the healing is boosted somehow, like say through Spirit Visage, the damage will not also go up. This passive gives a surprising amount of sustain all by itself. Be sure to focus your attacks on a single target as much as you can in order to maximize its stacking effect. Warwick's Q is Hungering Strike. He can hit a target from a short range away, dealing magic damage and healing himself for 80% of the damage dealt. The damage itself consists of either a flat amount of damage, or a percentage of the target's maximum health, whichever one is greater. In both cases, it'll also deal bonus damage based on your ability power. This means Hungering Strike gets more powerful the more health your enemies have. On screen now, you can see now how much health your enemies need to have per spell level in order for the flat damage to equal the percentage damage. If they have more total, then it'll always deal the percentage and thus become more powerful. With the combination of Hungering Strike and Eternal Thirst, Warwick really doesn't need to take many health potions to the lane. What's a health potion? 150 health over 15 seconds? A level 3 Hungering Strike can give you that and more instantly. Instead, however, you may want mana potions. Hungering Strike is a very expensive spell and Warwick's mana pool doesn't grow very quickly. Generally, you will want to max this out second, but if you're playing an AP-focused Warwick, you might max it out first. For W, Warwick has one of the craziest spells in the game. Hunter's Call gives Warwick an attack speed boost for 10 seconds. At max rank, it's an 80% boost. But that's not all. He also boosts all nearby allies' attack speed by half that amount. It's like Nunu's Blood Boil if it helped everybody. You and your carry alone could crush a tower in seconds. It's super cheap and has a range about the same as helpful aura items. And of course, it synergizes greatly with his passive and any on-hit items you might purchase, which is to say, a lot of them. It's all kinds of awesome. If you can get away with it, especially if you're the jungler, max this spell out as fast as you can. Next, the Blood Hunter has Blood Scent. Blood Scent is a toggled ability. While activated, whenever an enemy champion who's under 50% health moves within range, Warwick gains bonus movement speed, and Warwick's team gains vision of that champion. The ability grants more movement speed and a longer range as it levels up, reaching almost as far as Twisted Fate can teleport. Blood Scent is great for chasing down fleeing enemies, especially if they try to hide in bushes. Later in the game, it's also pretty awesome for psyching out your enemies as that range stretches farther and farther away. How close is the Warwick? No one knows. Unfortunately, Blood Scent has many downsides to it, to the point that it might hurt you if you aren't careful with it. While it's good for chasing, that's only if the enemy in question gets knocked below 50% before they get away. If, say, you gank and don't get them quite low enough, you may have some trouble catching back up. Probably the worst part, though, is that enemies who are marked with Blood Scent are notified of it with the big red eyes over their head and the sound of Warwick howling. They'll know you're coming and run away long before you can reach them. Therefore, in most cases, you should probably keep Blood Scent off until it becomes useful. With all these downsides to it, you should probably max out Blood Scent last. maybe taking a point in it early should you need a quick speed boost in a chase. Lastly, Warwick's ultimate is Infinite Duress. From a fairly long range, he lunges toward a target, suppressing them for 1.8 seconds and attacking them 5 times over the duration, dealing magic damage that scales with his bonus attack damage. With each of these 5 attacks, he procs all on-hit effects his items have, as well as gaining 30% lifesteal for the duration, and benefits from full stacks of Eternal Thirst. The only effect that doesn't work here is crit chance. These attacks can't critically strike. Also, it's worthy of note that if he's blinded before the ability, then all of his attacks will miss, but the target will still be suppressed. Quite the mouthful. Basically, what this boils down to is Warwick's ganking and initiation tool, starting fights by locking down a target so your allies can squish it, all while dealing massive damage and healing himself. While his ganks are weak at first, once Warwick has his ultimate, his ganks are all but a sure kill. Now be careful though, because it can be cancelled. We mentioned the blinding, but it is a channeled ability, just like many other ultimates, such as Fiddlesticks and Malzahar's. So it can be cancelled with a silence, knock up, knockback, stun. Yeah, so be very careful when you use Infinite Duress to note who could cancel your abilities. As a powerful spell in its own right, and an awesome form of initiation regardless of how it can be cancelled, you should definitely take a point in Infinite Duress every chance you can. Now for runes and masteries. Warwick can take whatever the heck he wants and be effective. Like I mentioned at the start, he can actually clear the jungle without either of them. However, for a good, generally effective set of runes, I take attack speed marks, flat armor seals, magic resistance per level glyphs, and movement speed quintessences. The seals and glyphs help him stay alive as he dives into fights, as well as clear the jungle with even more health than normal. The marks synergize well with his W and his passive, and the quintessences help him keep up with his enemies, even if Blood Scent isn't working. As for masteries, again, do what you want. Go full AD for stronger attacks with your W and ult. Go full AP for stronger Qs and strong on-hit effects with Malady. You could even build into the utility tree for extra speed, cooldown reduction, and lifesteal. Personally, I prefer going with 9-21-0, becoming even harder to kill while speeding up my early game a little bit with the offensive points. Summoner spells have a good number of options as well, though there are a few basic standbys. If you're jungling, for example, you'll want to take Smite, no questions about that one. Flash, good on everyone, helps Warwick catch up with enemies he can't quite reach and escape from bad fights since he doesn't have an escape tool in his kit. Exhaust adds another bit of crowd control to his kit and makes ganking when Infinite Duress isn't available much more doable. Ghost works similarly to Flash, but stacks ridiculously with Blood Scent for a wolf that is far too fast for anyone else's good. Ignite helps him ensure kills and is a great choice in lane. Lastly, Teleport is a feasible option as well. If you build him to push lanes with maybe a static shiv, he'll clear waves crazy fast and take towers before the enemy team can respond, not to mention the ganking options it opens up. Now, items! Pick whatever you want, man. No, seriously, if you're smart about it, Warwick can benefit from every single item in the store except for Runon's Hurricane, and that's only because the bonus is ranged only. While this is true, I'll give you a few example builds and some thoughts on what to do with it. First, beginning in the jungle. While most junglers require a hunter's machete and 5 health potions to clear it, Warwick can do it with 1 or 2 potions and a ward and leave the jungle with near full health. He can also clear equally well, starting with Boots of Speed, Cloth Armor, a long sword, Doran's Blade, or even any number of rejuvenation beads. Warwick is ridiculously flexible. If he does start with a hunter's machete, that can build into 1 or 2 different things. Wriggle's Lantern or Spirit of the Elder Lizard. The Lantern is better for the act of jungling itself. In addition to the free wards, the main passive works extremely well with Warwick's attack speed, letting him clear the jungle and lanes ridiculously fast, not to mention taking down Baron and Dragon. Spirit of the Elder Lizard is arguably better for fighting champions, giving you bonus bleeding damage on every hit and spell. Pick your poison. For shoes, again, do whatever. Berserker's Greaves stack well with Hunter's Call. Ninja Tabi and Mercury Treads help him survive in fights longer, just pick whichever one you think works better with the enemy team composition. Ionian Boots of Lucidity let him do what he does well more often. Sorcerer's Shoes are good for an AP-focused Warwick, which we'll talk about later. Personally, especially as I prefer to jungle, I take Boots of Mobility. They let him roam the map very quickly, getting where he needs to be when he needs to be there. The Fear enchantment in particular is a good one for him to strap onto his shoes, as it will help him stick to targets even before a Blood Scent comes online. Next, some damage. Blade of the Ruined King is so much better than its predecessor, Madred's Blood Razor. I love to rush this thing as fast as I can. It adds so much to his kit. On his auto attacks, on his ult, not to mention the slow and damage on the activated ability. Nothing's escaping from this Warwick. Let's follow this up with some survivability. Spirit Visage is extremely good on Warwick. Its passive synergizes with his Q, his ult, and his passive. If the enemy has no magic damage worth mentioning though, consider getting a Locket of the Iron Solari instead for its sheer efficiency. You can start with the Kindle Dim either way. Your other two slots can be, well, whatever you like. Phantom Dancer, Static Shiv, and Zephyr make you awesome and speedy. Ravenous Hydra gives you some AoE damage, and yes, it works with your ultimate too. Bloodthirster is more damage and more survivability. Wit's End is some more attack speed, damagey goodness if you need some more magic resistance. Frozen Mallet helps you stick to targets even more. Mercurial Scimitar lets you escape any sticky situation. Runic Bulwark and Zeke's Herald pair well with Hunter's Call to make you a walking aura of doom. Banshee's Veil makes your ult harder to interrupt, and Warmog's Armor and Guardian Angel are both awesome general defensive doodads. AP Warwick is a niche one-trick pony much of the game, but there are ways to work around it. There are, of course, your standard Deathfire Grasp, Lichbane, Zhonya's Hourglass, and Rabadon's Deathcap here to make him work at all as AP, but Warwick can make special use of Malady. Since it's an on-hit ability based on your ability power, it essentially gives your ult a 0.5 ability power ratio. With a Spell Sword Mastery, that bumps up to 0.75, which is pretty respectable. Pretty crazy when you realize this works with Hunter's Call too. Also note that for AP Warwick, Doran's Ring is a good item to start with, as he'll need all the mana he can get. Warwick isn't a particularly popular champion as things go. This isn't that he's bad necessarily. He has a few shortcomings, sure, namely the cost of Hungering Strike and the waste of space that Blood Scent is the majority of the time, but he's still a good champion. The biggest problem is that he's not a specialist. Amumu is an amazing tank. Shen has great initiation. Olaf clears the jungle extremely fast. Warwick doesn't have any of these specializations. He is instead fairly good at everything. So while he's not exceptional at any one thing, he makes up for this by still being good where others have glaring weaknesses. Most of his kit is fairly simple, but I can give a few useful tips on using Infinite Duress. Firstly, while it's a great initiation tool in teamfights, try and save it a bit during ganks. Do as much as you can without it first. If you can force them to burn their escapes before you lock them down, they'll be all the easier to kill. Within teamfights though, try your best to lock down the carry first. If you don't instantly kill them, you'll remove most of their damage from the fight for a couple seconds. Again, try to make sure that any abilities the enemy have that could cancel it have been burned before you pull it off. Lastly, remember that it's super awesome while defending too. Locking an enemy under a tower for almost 2 seconds will get 2 or 3 shower shots off on them. Warwick is a great champion, especially if you're starting out jungling. Lock down the right targets, help your team push with great speed, and sustain through any and all fights in order to lead your team to victory. With that, thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this guide, please let me know by hitting the like button. Speak up in the comments below if you have advice or questions. We're all here to learn. Subscribe for future content, including champion guides, gameplay guides, and other possibly not LOL content. Oh, and while I'm here, I've mentioned my Twitter account before, but I've finally launched a Facebook page for the channel, linked in the description below. I'd really appreciate your support there. Till next time, I've been Gin, and you've been watching me talk about a video game.
I was a man, that is how I began. Cursed by the star child, transformed into the wild. But she made a deal, giving up the divine. She lost her power while extending mine. I smell your